The truth about being tired. You wake up tired, not sleepy, not lazy, tired. Your body moves, but your mind feels heavy. You sit in front of your work. The screen glows, the task waits, and your brain whispers, "Not today." But life doesn't stop. Bills don't stop. Competition doesn't stop. Time definitely doesn't stop. So the real question is not, how do I stop being tired? The real question is, how do I win, even when I am? The dangerous lie about success. We've been sold a fantasy that successful people wake up energized, that discipline feels powerful, that motivation is constant. That's a lie. The truth? The people who win are tired too. They just move anyway, not because they feel amazing, but because they understand something most people don't. Energy is unreliable. Standards are not. If you rely on motivation, you'll work when you feel good. If you rely on standards, you'll work even when you don't. That's the difference. Physical tired versus mental resistance. Let's separate something important. There are two types of tired: biological fatigue, psychological resistance. Biological fatigue is real. You need sleep. You need food. You need recovery. Ignore that long term and you burn out. But psychological resistance, that's different. That's the brain protecting comfort. When you start something difficult, your brain calculates, this requires effort. Effort equals discomfort. Discomfort equals potential threat. So it pushes back. Not because you're incapable, but because your brain prefers safety. That heavy feeling before starting, that's not always exhaustion. Sometimes it's avoidance. And if you don't learn the difference, you'll quit every time it gets uncomfortable. The 5-minute rule of dominance. Here's something powerful. You don't need to finish the work. You need to start it. Tell yourself, just 5 minutes. That's it. 5 minutes. No pressure to complete. No pressure to be perfect. Just begin. Because the hardest part of any task is emotional activation. Once you start, resistance drops. Momentum builds. Action creates energy. Not the other way around. You don't wait to feel ready. You move, and readiness follows. The myth of "I'll do it tomorrow." Tomorrow is the most dangerous word in the English language. Tomorrow feels safe. It gives you relief. It removes guilt. But tomorrow has no guarantees. Every time you delay action, you train your brain. When things feel hard, escape. Do that enough times, and it becomes identity. I'm someone who doesn't finish. That's how average lives are built. Not through failure, through small daily escapes. The discipline equation. Success, when tired, depends on one equation: clarity, emotion. If your why is weak, exhaustion wins. If your purpose is vague, distraction wins. You need something stronger than your mood. Ask yourself, why does this matter? Who suffers if I don't do this? What happens in 5 years if I stay like this? Pain clarifies purpose. Purpose fuels action. The silent competitor. Here's something uncomfortable. While you're tired, someone else is tired too. But they're working, not because they feel superior, but because they made a decision. That silent competitor exists in every field. The one who trains when exhausted, studies when overwhelmed, builds when discouraged. Success is often not about talent, it's about who tolerates discomfort longer. The energy management framework. Winning while tired doesn't mean destroying yourself. It means managing intelligently. 3 levels. 1. Non-negotiables. Even on bad days, you complete these. 30 minutes focused work. 1 hard task, no excuses. 2. Minimum standard day. If you feel 40% energy, you give 40%, but you still move. 3. High energy days push harder. Build ahead. Create momentum. This prevents burnout and prevents stagnation. Emotional maturity, real growth happens when you stop asking, "Do I feel like it?" and start asking, "Is this aligned with my standards?" Children act based on emotion. Leaders act based on principle. If you let feelings decide your productivity, your future becomes unstable. Emotional maturity is doing what matters, regardless of mood. The identity shift. Stop saying, "I'm too tired." Start saying, "I move even when tired." Language shapes identity. Identity shapes behavior. Behavior shapes results. If you repeat, "I'm exhausted, I can't," your brain obeys. If you repeat, "I'm tired but disciplined," your brain adapts. The body listens to the mind more than you think. Micro-wins strategy. When energy is low, shrink the battlefield. Don't conquer the mountain. Climb the first step. Send one email. Write one paragraph. Do 10 push-ups. Study one page. Small wins rebuild confidence. Confidence rebuilds momentum. Momentum rebuilds power. The long game. Perspective. One day of exhaustion doesn't destroy a dream, but consistent avoidance does. Life is not won in explosive moments. It's won in quiet consistency. The nights no one sees, the mornings you didn't want to wake up, the days you almost quit. That's where identity is forged. You will be tired again. That's guaranteed. But tired is not defeated. Tired is not incapable. Tired is not finished. Tired can still move. And movement, even small movement, beats perfection every time. You don't need full power. You need controlled persistence. So next time your brain says, "Not today," you answer, "Especially today." Training your brain to perform. When you're drained, your brain is not designed for ambition. Let's be clear about something. Your brain was not designed for success. It was designed for survival. Thousands of years ago, conserving energy meant staying alive. Moving less meant avoiding danger. Avoiding stress meant avoiding threats. Today, there are no lions, but your brain reacts to deadlines, like they are. When you feel tired before starting work, it's not weakness, it's ancient wiring. Your brain wants efficiency. Success requires effort. That conflict creates resistance. If you understand this, you stop taking fatigue personally. It's biology, but biology can be trained. Dopamine, the motivation chemical you're misusing. Most people think dopamine is pleasure. It's not. It's anticipation. It spikes when your brain expects a reward. Here's the problem. Social media gives instant dopamine. Scrolling gives instant dopamine. Short videos give instant dopamine. Work, delayed dopamine. Your brain compares quick reward now versus hard effort for reward later. And guess which one wins when you're tired? Exactly. When exhausted, your brain chooses the fastest comfort available. That's why tired days become unproductive days. Not because you're incapable, because your dopamine system is hijacked, rewiring dopamine for discipline. Here's how winners use dopamine differently. They attach dopamine to progress, not results. Instead of, "I'll feel good when I succeed," they train, "I feel good because I showed up." Completion is rewarded internally. Effort becomes satisfying. This is a learned skill. After finishing a task, even small, pause. Acknowledge it. Let your brain register progress. Over time, work itself becomes rewarding. And when work becomes rewarding, fatigue loses power. The nervous system and performance. When you're exhausted, your nervous system is overloaded. Two main modes control you: sympathetic fight or flight, parasympathetic rest and recovery. When stress is chronic, you live in survival mode, and survival mode drains energy fast. That's why some people sleep 8 hours and still feel tired. their nervous system never relaxes. If you want to perform while tired, you must learn to regulate your state, not just push harder. The 90-second reset. When you feel drained before working, stop. Close your eyes. Slow your breathing. Inhale 4 seconds. Hold 4 seconds. Exhale 6 seconds. Do this for 90 seconds. This activates the parasympathetic system. Heart rate slows. Cortisol drops. Focus improves. You don't always need motivation. Sometimes you just need regulation. Calm brain, usable energy. Decision. Fatigue is real. Every decision costs energy. What to wear, what to eat, what to start first, whether to begin at all. By the time you reach important work, your mental battery is half dead. High performers reduce decisions. They automate basics. Same wake time, same work block, same workout slot. Routine protects energy. Chaos destroys it. When you're tired, structure saves you. The low energy protocol. You need a plan for bad days, not just good ones. Create a written protocol. When energy is low, I will. Do 20 minutes minimum deep work. Eliminate all distractions. Avoid social media completely. Focus only on one priority. This removes negotiation. When tired, the brain negotiates. Protocol removes debate. No thinking. Just execution. When energy is low, I will. Do 20 minutes, minimum deep work. Eliminate all distractions. Avoid social media completely. Focus only on one priority. This removes negotiation. When tired, the brain negotiates. Protocol removes debate. No thinking. Just execution. Burnout versus laziness. Let's clarify something important. If you're chronically exhausted for months, you might be burned out. Burnout is not weakness. It's prolonged stress without recovery. Signs of burnout: cynicism, emotional numbness, no motivation for things you once enjoyed, constant mental fog. If that's you, you don't need discipline, you need recovery. But if you're simply resisting discomfort, that's different. Don't confuse avoidance with burnout. One requires rest, the other requires courage. Building mental endurance. Think of focus like a muscle. If you only work when fully energized, your tolerance for discomfort stays low. But if you train working at 60% energy, your baseline grows. Over time, what once felt exhausting becomes normal. This is how elite performers are built. Not through hype, through exposure, repeated exposure to effort, the emotional edge. Most people stop when they feel tired. Few continue. That gap right there is where advantage lives. Every time you push slightly beyond comfort, you separate yourself from average. Not dramatically, incrementally. And incremental advantage, repeated daily, compounds. Identity over mood. Here's the ultimate truth. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your identity. If your identity is, I work when I feel good, your results will fluctuate. If your identity is, I execute regardless, you become stable. Stability wins long-term games. You are not broken for feeling tired. You are human. But humans adapt. Humans evolve. Humans train their minds. The goal is not to eliminate exhaustion. The goal is to build a system that functions despite it. Because life will not wait for your energy, but your future will reward your discipline. When you feel drained, that is not the signal to stop. It is the invitation to grow stronger. And strength is built in moments like this. Building a system that wins. Even on your worst days, motivation is a visitor. Systems are permanent. Motivation is emotional. Systems are structural. Motivation says, let's go. System says, this is what we do. If your success depends on how inspired you feel, you'll be inconsistent. If your success depends on structure, you'll be dangerous. High performers don't wake up asking, "Do I feel like it?" They wake up inside a structure that removes the question. No debate, no drama, no negotiation, just execution. The three-level performance framework. To win long-term without burning out, you need layers. Layer 1, foundation sleep, nutrition, movement. Layer 2, structure, time blocks, priority clarity, distraction control. Layer 3, intensity, deep focus, emotional control, execution under fatigue. Most people try to jump to intensity without building foundation, and then they crash. If your sleep is chaotic, your food is random, your body is inactive, you will feel tired constantly. That's not weakness, that's mismanagement. Energy is not random, it is built. The 90-minute deep work block. Your brain works best in focused cycles, around 60-90 minutes, not 5 hours straight, not endless multitasking. Here's the structure. Choose one task, remove all distractions, set 60-90 minutes, work without switching. 10-15-minute break after. Even when tired, 60 focused minutes beats 5 distracted hours. Depth beats duration, always. The anti-burnout rule. Burnout doesn't come from working hard. It comes from working hard without control. When you feel trapped, when you feel forced, when you feel no progress, that's when exhaustion becomes emotional. To prevent burnout, track visible progress. Every day, small wins, clear metrics, completed tasks. The brain needs proof that effort matters. Without proof, fatigue feels pointless. With proof, fatigue feels purposeful. The hard first strategy. When energy is highest even slightly, do the hardest task first. Not emails, not messages, not small tasks. The thing you're avoiding. Because once the hardest task is done, everything else feels lighter. And on tired days, this matters more. If you waste early energy on nonsense, you'll have nothing left for what matters. Protect your prime energy, even if it's limited. Mental toughness is trained, not born. Nobody is born disciplined. They build it. Every time you work while tired, you increase tolerance. Every time you avoid quitting, you expand capacity. Discomfort is progressive. What once felt overwhelming becomes normal. That's adaptation. That's growth. But only if you don't escape. The 1% edge principle. You don't need heroic effort daily. You need slight advantage daily. If you push 1% beyond comfort, every day, for a year, you won't recognize yourself. The problem? Most people push 0%. They stop exactly at discomfort, so they stay exactly where they are. Small daily edge, huge long-term difference. Environment is stronger than willpower. Stop relying on willpower. Design your environment instead. Phone in another room, notifications off, clean workspace, fixed schedule. If distraction is easy, discipline becomes hard. If focus is easy, if distraction is easy, discipline becomes hard. If focus is easy, progress becomes natural. Environment shapes behavior more than motivation ever will. Control your environment. Control your output. The energy audit. Ask yourself honestly, what drains me daily? Social media, negative people, lack of sleep, poor diet, unclear goals. You don't just need more energy, you need fewer leaks. Plug the leaks. Energy increases automatically. Long-term thinking. When you're tired, your brain thinks short-term. Relief now. But success requires long-term thinking. Ask, will I regret stopping, or will I regret continuing? Most of the time, you regret stopping. Rarely do you regret finishing the work. Future you is watching. Act accordingly. Controlled recovery. Winning while tired does not mean destroying yourself daily. Recovery is strategic. Planned rest. Real sleep. True disconnection. Physical movement. Recovery is not laziness. Unplanned avoidance is know the difference. The standard you accept. At the end of the day, everything comes down to one question. What standard are you willing to tolerate? Average effort? Average focus? Average discipline? Or execution under pressure? Consistency under fatigue? Action under doubt? Because tired is temporary. Standards are permanent. You don't need perfect conditions. You need controlled discipline. You don't need unlimited energy. You need intentional action. You don't need to feel unstoppable. You need to move when stopping feels easier, because the world is full of talented people. But talent fades when tired. Discipline does not. And if you master the ability to execute, when exhausted, when distracted, when doubtful, you become unstoppable. Not because you feel powerful, but because you built power. Becoming unbreakable. When you're exhausted, the 50% rule. There's a concept used in elite military and endurance communities. The moment you feel like you're done, you're usually at 40–50% of your real capacity. Your brain signals stop early, not because you're finished, because it wants to protect you. It doesn't measure your true limit. It estimates risk. So when you're tired and your mind says, "I can't continue," pause and understand something powerful. You are not at zero. You are at discomfort. There's a difference. Most people never discover their real capacity because they obey the first signal to stop. The ones who grow, they test it carefully. They don't collapse. They lean forward. Pain is information, not command. When you're exhausted, your brain amplifies discomfort. It wants you safe. But discomfort is not always danger. There's physical pain that protects you from injury. And there's psychological discomfort that protects you from growth. You must learn to separate the two. If you're sick, injured, or sleep-deprived, long-term rest. But if you're just uncomfortable, that's growth knocking. Pain is data. It is not authority. You are. The internal dialogue shift. Pay attention to your self-talk when tired. It usually sounds like this. This is too much. I'm drained. I deserve a break. I'll do it tomorrow. That voice feels like you, but it's just a pattern. Elite performers train their inner dialogue. Instead of, "This is too much," they say, "This is training." Instead of, "I'm exhausted," they say, "This is where others stop." The situation doesn't change. The meaning changes, and meaning controls emotion. Operating at 50%, like it's 100%, you will not always have full energy, but you can always give full intention. There's a difference between low energy plus low effort and low energy plus focused effort. When tired, shrink the task, increase focus, eliminate everything unnecessary. Precision replaces intensity. Even on low fuel, a focused engine moves far. Scattered energy wastes what little you have. Emotional control under fatigue. When exhausted, you become more reactive, more sensitive, more irritated, more impulsive. This is dangerous because tired decisions create long-term damage. Rule: never make life decisions when depleted. No quitting, no dramatic messages, no emotional reactions. When tired, execute tasks, delay decisions. Power is not loud, power is controlled. Section 6. The story you tell yourself. There are two identities, the one who says, "Life is hard," and the one who says, "Hard is normal." The second identity wins. If you expect things to be easy, fatigue feels unfair. If you expect difficulty, fatigue feels part of the mission. Expectation changes resilience. The competitive advantage of endurance talent is common. Discipline under fatigue is rare. Everyone works when motivated. Few work when exhausted. That's the separation line. That's where promotions are decided. That's where businesses grow. That's where transformations happen. If you build the ability to function when drained, you enter a small category of people, the reliable ones, and reliability is power, turning fatigue into fuel. Here's something counterintuitive. Sometimes exhaustion is emotional frustration. You're tired of being behind, tired of not progressing, tired of your current level. Use that. Instead of escaping into comfort, channel it into movement. Say, I'm tired of this version of me, that anger, that frustration, that dissatisfaction. Convert it into execution. Emotion is energy. Direct it. Don't suppress it. The dark room principle growth often happens in quiet moments, late nights, early mornings, when nobody sees. When you're tired and still working, there's no applause, no validation, no reward, just you. Those are the moments that build identity. When no one is watching and you still choose discipline, you build self-respect. And self-respect is stronger than motivation. The compounding effect of not quitting. One day of pushing through fatigue is small, but repeated over months, it changes everything, because every time you continue, you reinforce, I finish, and finishing becomes automatic. Quitting works the same way. Repeat it, and it becomes automatic too. Choose carefully. Habits form identity. Identity forms destiny. Controlled aggression. There is a healthy form of aggression, not toward others, toward mediocrity, toward excuses, toward your lower standard. Sometimes you don't need calm softness, you need intensity. A decision that says, I refuse to stay here. Not emotional chaos, but directed force. That force, applied daily, breaks ceilings, the line that changes everything. At some point in your life, you will reach a line, the line where you're tired, overwhelmed, tempted to stop. Most people step back, a few step forward. That single step, repeated across years, creates massive difference. Not talent, not luck, not perfect conditions. Just one decision. I move anyway. You will feel exhausted again. You will doubt again. You will want to stop again. That is guaranteed. But the question is no longer, am I tired? The question is, who am I when I'm tired? If you become someone who executes under fatigue, who thinks clearly under pressure, who refuses to negotiate with excuses, then exhaustion loses control over you. And when exhaustion loses control, very few things can stop you. Because strength is not built when you feel powerful. It's built when you feel weak and choose discipline anyway. The night that changes everything. 11:47 p.m. It's late. The room is quiet. Your eyes burn. Your body feels heavy. You've already worked all day. And now you're staring at your screen thinking, maybe tomorrow. Nobody would blame you. Nobody would even know. That's the dangerous part. Because the biggest battles in life are invisible. No audience, no applause, no pressure, just you and your decision. The versions split. In that moment, something happens. Two versions of you appear. Version 1 says, you're tired. Rest. You deserve it. Version 2 says, one more hour. Version 1 wants comfort. Version 2 wants growth. Here's what most people don't understand. That moment is not small. It is identity shaping. Every time you choose comfort, you strengthen that identity. Every time you choose effort, you strengthen the other. Your future is being built in micro decisions like this. The lie of tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll do it. Sounds harmless, but tomorrow has a pattern. Tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes next month. Next month becomes next year. And one day you look back and realize you were not incapable. You were inconsistent. And inconsistency kills more dreams than failure ever will. The 60-minute transformation. Here's the truth. You don't need 5 more hours. You need 60 focused minutes. 1 hour of no phone, no distractions, no switching tasks, no excuses, just execution. That 1 hour compounds. 365 days of 1 extra hour, that's 365 hours. That's the difference between average and elite. The emotional breaking point. There will be days when you feel like quitting everything, not just the task, everything. You'll question your ability, your direction, your worth. That's not weakness, that's expansion. Because growth stretches identity, and stretching feels uncomfortable. But here's the shift. Instead of asking, why is this so hard? Ask, who am I becoming because this is hard? Difficulty is shaping you, not punishing you. The comeback formula. If you fall off track, don't overthink, don't overanalyze, don't self-attack. Use the 3-step reset. Forgive immediately, reduce the task size, execute within 5 minutes. Momentum matters more than perfection. The longer you wait, the heavier restarting feels. Small action, fast correction, back in motion. The discipline blueprint. Now, let's make it structured. Daily structure. Wake up same time, move your body, even 10 minutes. First, 90 minutes, no hardest task. 60-90-minute deep work cycles. Phone away during work. Track visible progress. Planned shutdown time. Real sleep. Weekly structure. Review progress. Adjust strategy. Remove distractions. Improve one small habit. This isn't extreme. It's consistent. Consistency beats intensity. The edge nobody talks about. The real advantage is not intelligence. It's emotional stability under stress. When others panic, you stay steady. When others slow down, you maintain pace. When others quit, you adapt. That's rare, and rare wins. Who you become. If you train this long enough, you stop being the person who needs motivation. You become the person who executes automatically. You don't ask, do I feel like it? You say, it's scheduled. You don't depend on emotion. You depend on identity. And identity is powerful. The final night scene. Imagine this. 1 year from now, you're sitting in the same room, but you feel different, stronger, calmer, more confident. Not because life became easier, but because you became disciplined. Because on nights when quitting felt easy, you chose effort. That's the difference. Not dramatic moments, small, repeated discipline. You will be tired again. You will doubt again. You will want comfort again. That's human. But you now understand something deeper. Fatigue is not the enemy. Inconsistency is. And every time you choose effort over escape, you build something invisible, something powerful, a standard. And once your standard rises, your life follows, from discipline to dominance. The shift, from motivation to obsession. There's a level beyond discipline. It's controlled obsession, not emotional chaos, not burnout, not unhealthy sacrifice, but deep commitment. The kind where your standards become non-negotiable. At first, you force yourself to work when tired. Later, it becomes who you are. That's the shift. Discipline is effort. Identity is automatic. When you identify as someone who finishes, you don't debate quitting. You don't romanticize rest. You execute. Long-term thinking changes everything. Most people think in days. Some think in weeks. Very few think in decades. Ask yourself, if I repeat my current habits for 5 years, where will I be? That question is powerful because exhaustion feels heavy in the moment, but in the long-term lens, it becomes small. One tired night is nothing. 5 years of inconsistency is everything. Zoom out. Your future self is built by patterns, not moods. The compounding identity effect. Every action casts a vote. You either vote for, "I am disciplined," or "I quit when uncomfortable." One vote seems small, but 10,000 votes over years. That creates identity, and identity shapes destiny. You don't suddenly become strong. You accumulate strength, quietly, and one day people call you disciplined. They didn't see the nights you almost stopped. They didn't see the internal battles. But you did, and that's enough. Mastering energy cycles. Dominance is not pushing 24/7. It's understanding cycles. There are seasons of intensity and seasons of recovery. Even high performers rotate. Sprint, recover, sprint, recover. The mistake is staying in permanent sprint mode. That leads to collapse. The intelligent move, planned pressure, planned rest, not emotional rest, strategic rest. When you rest with intention, you come back sharper. The standard upgrade. Here's something dangerous. You get used to your current level. What once felt hard becomes normal. That's good, but if you don't raise the standard, you plateau. Every 3 to 6 months ask, what feels comfortable now that used to be hard? Good. Now raise it. More depth, more precision, more efficiency. Growth is a moving target. Stay ahead of comfort. Emotional detachment from results. This is advanced. You must care deeply, but not emotionally collapse over outcomes. Focus on controllables. Effort, consistency, quality, focus. Detach from immediate praise, quick validation, short-term results. Results lag behind effort. Always. If you judge yourself too early, you'll stop too early. Patience is power. Building a reputation with yourself. Forget what others think. The real question is, do you trust yourself? When you say you'll do something, do you follow through? Self-trust is built through kept promises. Every completed task strengthens it. Every broken commitment weakens it. And without self-trust, confidence is fake. Real confidence is evidence-based. Evidence of execution. The silent years. There will be a period in your life where it feels like nothing is happening. No recognition, no visible breakthrough, no dramatic results. This is the silent phase. This is the silent phase. Most people quit here because effort without applause feels empty. But this is where mastery builds. Quiet repetition, skill refinement, mental toughness training. Years later, people call it overnight success. They didn't see the silent years, but you will. The legacy question. One day, you will look back, and you will ask, did I waste my potential, or did I push my limits? Exhaustion will not matter then. Comfort will not matter then. What will matter is whether you respected your ability. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be honest in effort. The final evolution. At the beginning of this journey, you were trying to work while tired. Now, you understand something deeper. Fatigue is part of growth. Discomfort is part of expansion. Pressure is part of transformation. You are no longer surprised by difficulty. You expect it. And when you expect difficulty, you prepare. And when you prepare, you dominate. There will always be days when energy is low. There will always be moments when quitting feels reasonable. But you are no longer the person who reacts emotionally. You are the person who executes intentionally. Not because it's easy, not because you feel unstoppable, but because your standard is higher than your mood. And once your standard becomes stronger than your emotions, very little in this world can control you. That's dominance. That's maturity. That's earned confidence. And it starts with one simple habit: move. Even when tired. Most people don't fail at the beginning. They fail in the last 1%. The last hour, the last rep, the last push when they feel tired. That's where everything changes. Not when it's easy, not when you're motivated, when you're exhausted, when quitting makes sense. That moment decides your identity. Anyone can work when inspired, few work when drained, and that small difference, repeated daily, creates a massive gap over time. The next time you feel done, ask yourself, am I truly finished? Or am I just uncomfortable? Because discomfort is where growth lives. Years from now, you won't remember how tired you were. You'll remember whether you pushed through. The last 1% is small, but it separates average from elite, and it's available every single day. All you have to do is take it.